Hi, and welcome to Unco, a podcast about what's unusual in tech. I'm your host, Timothy Buck. Last week's episode was a bit all over the place. Josh Centers and I talked about Apple's path under Tim Cook, the power of consistently creating and then sharing what you create, and the impact of technology on politics. This week, I was incredibly honored to have Georgia Dow on the show to discuss the intersection of social media and mental health, privacy, the robot apocalypse, and a whole lot more. I really enjoy creating this show, and I truly hope you enjoy listening to it. If you do, please help me cover my base expenses by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/uncofm. Most of my listeners have probably heard of you, but for those who haven't, can you give yourself a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, for sure. I do podcasts and deal with technology at nighttime. And in the daytime, I am a psychotherapist that deals with helping people that have anxiety, depression, self-esteem issues. And I also have a company that we deal with anxiety videos as well. So for some people, it's better to kind of deal with it at home than it is to go in to see someone. That can be intimidating. And so I do that as well.
Yeah, and that's honestly why I asked you to be on the show. I thought, like, Unco is a show about what's unusual in tech. And I try to discuss things that are, like, at the intersection of technology and different disciplines. And because you have that, you're a psychotherapist, but you're also a tech writer and podcaster, I thought it'd be really interesting to get into that, the intersection of how technology affects our mental health.
Right. Yeah, it's so true because it does so much, right?
Right, exactly. And when I think about mental health and technology, I was actually talking to my wife about it, and the first thing that both of us thought of was social media. Mm-hmm. And I think we both know a lot of people who struggle with anxiety about social media or different things like that. So I don't know if you had any thoughts about how social media affects mental health broadly, or even maybe what you've seen in the lives of people that you know.
Yeah, a lot. I have really strong opinions on social media and anxiety and depression. I think that in some ways social media is nice because if you're introverted or shy or you have social anxiety, there is that way to reach out. There's definitely some good things that social media brings. There's an immediacy to that, freedom of information. People can now take part in getting messages out directly to people. And I think that social media is wonderful for and really does its part to help society become better. That being said, there are so many negative effects to social media because you're inundated with other people. Say that you're depressed or you're anxious or just living a regular life. And you look on social media and it looks like everyone is having like the best blast ever in the world, right? We don't put down, I'm feeling down and I'm just going to sit here wearing my without my hair being washed and I'm just going to eat chocolate until I feel ill. That's not what people usually post on social media. So we're inundated with other people's lies of what their lives are like. And that makes us then think, well, there's something wrong with me. And even if, some of your friends do normal things, but then you always have, this person's going here and this person is traveling there. And so you're always comparing your life to other people's idealized, picturesque versions of what their life might be like, and that's constantly hitting you. And that causes a lot of anxiety, a lot of that existential, what am I doing with my life? What should I be doing on us? And that need to kind of catch up and not feel like we're enough the way that we are. And that causes a lot of negative effects. It's a really damaging thing. And also just for breakups and for being able to move on, we're constantly Google stalking, exes and other people and what are happening with them and what are they doing to that. And it can be quite addictive. So you kind of want to get all those internet credits, right? So it's one of these really addictive things that you want to get more likes and that means I'm a better person and how many followers and how many people liked this. And they've spent, billions of dollars to be able to make sure that they've perfected to make it as addictive as possible, and that works.
Right.
But addictions leave us wanting more and always feeling less.
That makes complete sense. And I think it kind of comes back to the incentives, because these companies are incentivized to keep us there as long as possible, and to try to grow our reach, and to try to, all the different incentives that Facebook or Twitter, all the social media companies have. And they're not necessarily incentivized to make us happier people, because
no, happy people get off of social media and live lives. That's not what they want. Right. They really don't want us happy, right? When we're not feeling good, that's when we surf, we online shop, we do it. That's when we want to not go out and be with other people. Happy people go out and do stuff more often than not. Happy people can be also sucked into social media, but they don't want that at all. That's not easy to incentivize.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you were talking about how, because we share what's positive about our lives, it's easy to just look around and see and feel like everyone around us has a better life than us. It's almost like we're getting there. I heard somebody call it a highlight reel. Like it's just like the best parts of their life, and that's what they're sharing. Like when they go on vacation, that's when people share a lot more than, like, if they're sick at home, they probably don't actually share that much. What interests me about that is it kind of ties to people who are authentic on like YouTube and stuff, who just share even what seems like they're sharing the negative parts of their lives. I don't know. I think of like Casey Neistat or other people like that, where he shares a lot of the like highlight reel, but he'll also have a little bit that makes you think you know him more. And that's almost used as like I don't know, as like another way to get us hooked by like feeling like we know somebody a little bit better. Yeah,
and it there are some people that really try to be exceptionally authentic and really raw. I think that takes a lot of bravery, a lot of courage to show, when you're down, when you're not feeling good, your life struggles. I think that can be very healing and can be very helpful to it, and that you see that there's other people that you might even look up to or really appreciate that are going through difficulties, and that life hits everyone, with a deck of cards that you don't know what's going to be coming at, and some really tough times also to be able to get through. And I like that part of social media to it. I think that now we have the first generation that's grown up bathed in social media, and that need to have to always do more, get ahead. There's not enough. I'm going to miss out. That fear of missing out if I'm not on my social media or checking can be really damaging, because we are reprogramming the way that your brain fires. The more that you deal with, instant gratification, the more you're used to instant gratification, and it becomes a difficulty for, interpersonal skills, because most of language is through body language. So if you're never interacting with another person, maybe never is a little bit of an exaggeration there, but you're not going to get better at that. If you're expecting right away someone to, reply that, you're not learning that sometimes you have to wait, or sometimes you have to suffer, or sometimes things are difficult, or it's not always fun and bells and whistles. And social media is a lie. It's teaching us a way of interacting with the world that is not the world. And that does have some serious consequences to it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of like sounds pretty negative, but how do you
It's ominous.
No, I agree. Yeah. I agree.
I do deal with tech. I love technology.
No, but I guess my question is, like, how do you in your personal life stay active in social? A lot of like you're writing and you're a podcaster, and you need social media to get that out there. How do you balance doing that and using it for the powerful tool that it is, and the negative effects that happen?
Yeah, I think that for me, I'm not, when I first jumped into, different sets of social media, I did a lot of it. It was really exciting. And there was a while where I was like, I'm going to post once every day, something that I find is the most exciting or interesting thing to be able to help people. And I was relatively active to it. And now I do it for where it is useful to me and helpful to others, and I don't do it. It's not my way of reaching out to people or being able to deal with it. So I'll, take messages and talk to people that I have on Twitter, but then I'll shoot an email or let's deal with something else so that we can actually go through that in a way that might be a little bit more real to touch. But I try to limit the amount of time that I'm on social media. Like, you're never going to look back on your life and go, I wish I spent more time on Twitter or Facebook. Or, that's not something that we do. And I was actually today, I was sitting down and I was just surfing Reddit, like the endless limit of nothing. I was doing nothing. I was doing nothing that was really important. And I'm like, I really want to get my office together. And I'm like, well, I'm never going to really want to do it anymore ever. So I might as well just do it now. And so I try to keep myself in check and be really honest with who I am as a person, because we all have our own little rabbit holes that we can get stuck into. And you want to appreciate the good parts to it, but also know, how much are you interacting with people? How long can you go without social media till you feel that need that I really want to just check my phone and take a look? And sometimes when you have those idle times, not to be able to just give yourself some time when you put the phone away and spend time, quality time, with the people in our lives and be able to deal with that. And so I try to really balance that. I try to balance it with my kids as well. They're not on social media because of that reason. I just don't want them to kind of get sucked in where they can't find their way out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some things that I try to do is, if I'm going to dinner with my wife, we'll just leave our phones.
Now, do you leave your phones at home?
Yeah, we just leave them at home.
I am very intrigued. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Now, I'll ask the question that everyone that's listening to this would be asking. So what happens if you get lost, or you need a message, or you have to call someone, or something's happened?
Right. So we've only done this a handful of times. We just kind of recently started
It's a handful more than I have done.
Right.
I'll leave it in my purse, but I still have it on me, and I have an Apple Watch, so I'm also getting all the notifications. Right.
Well, so we live in San Francisco, so
wow.
we've always done it when we walk to food. So there's probably a good 60 restaurants within 3 blocks of our house. So when we're walking to one of those, we're not going to get lost. It's 2 hours. We're not going to need to call anybody. And I don't know. It's been really nice, actually.
I like that. That's for the thing I've gone. I think I'm pretty radical in my use. Now, the first time you did it, did you feel kind of naked?
Yeah, definitely. It was a little I don't know. It was... We did it when her brother was here as well. So it was me. Was that just so that the brother doesn't reach out to you, or was it because you knew that your place was safe? Was it? No, yeah, it was it was me, my wife, and her brother who went to eat pizza. And it was just, it was definitely a little weird. There's nothing to really do in the silences. Okay. Which sounds bad, but
no, you see, I that's awesome. I think that's wonderful. I won't take out my phone. That's one of my rules is when you're eating, no phone. I'm always staring at Renee because he's always, he has to for work much more than I do to be able to be connected to everything. But I think that's wonderful that you can do that. Yeah.
It's been a good experiment, and I think we need to do it more often. But I definitely feel that even after just 30 minutes or an hour of being away from my phone, there's definitely this pull to be checking Twitter or whatever it may be. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I did want to point out some of the positive things that Twitter has been for my life, as I grew up in the South, and I didn't really have a whole lot of friends who were interested in the things that I was interested in. Right. And so because of that, social media, especially Twitter, kind of became a place where I talked to people who had similar interests to me and kind of
Right.
grew friendships there. And
Mm-hmm.
and since we moved to San Francisco, those have turned into like several of those have turned into in-person friendships that like we go get coffee or eat dinner together or whatever. And that has been
Mm-hmm.
really, really valuable.
Yeah, yeah, that is really true. You can reach many more people, especially if you have diverse views or the people around you, or you live in a small place.
Yep.
You can really reach out and be able to learn things and meet different people. It's made the world a smaller place. We're closer because of that, because you can have a friend that's, halfway across the continent and or the world and be able to talk to them and actually meet up with an idea and discuss it and be able to work together. And I think that for that it's a wonderful thing to be able to meet up with people and really connect. And if there's people in trouble, you can also get information out really quickly for that as well.
Yeah, no, yeah, and there's clearly a ton of benefits to social media, and I think that's why it grew so quickly. Is it was pretty clear, at least in the marketing, that this is something that has some benefit to our lives. But I think it's interesting to think about how like future generations are going to think and talk about social media, because we're just kind of now, or at least for me, I'm just now beginning to see people talk about it as a negative thing in an intelligent way and like pointing out how it does hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if 30, 40 years from now the view of social media will be completely different, or I don't know. It's interesting.
I think that it's still going to be like, I think that there's like there's so many really important, like think about having to mail your friends or your aunt that lives
Right.
really far away that you can't really have contact with, or if you're working far away, this has allowed people to be able to stay connected and be able to know what's happening in the world that's around us. I think that problem that we haven't touched upon right now is also just that freedom of information, which can be it's neutral, but it can be used for good and it can be used for ill. And who controls what information we give to others, and what rights do we have to be able to choose to be forgotten or not, or
Right.
how that gets sold.
Yeah.
And I think that that is one of those dark areas of social media, of what are they going to be doing with what information we have and what are our rights in that. And, you look at the EULAs and privacy for most companies, they're unreadable.
Right.
They're 64 pages of that. And so I think most people don't even know what they've accepted or haven't accepted that will happen with their information that they give.
Yeah, and that ties into everything that's been going on with Facebook recently, and even just earlier today, I saw that Facebook was testing something in Europe for their new law. I forget what the acronym is, G something. And the way they were requesting, there were just these like dark patterns in how they were requesting you to give them access to like facial recognition. And the screenshots I saw were like, it was like a big button to accept. And the only way to deny was to like hit the back button on Android and like go, and it was like 3 clicks to deny. And none of them were like a big button that said like, no, I don't want to do this.
Right, exactly.
And yeah, so,
but it's all it's all well thought out to make it as because they don't want that, right? And if I worked, if that was my company, I would totally think it's a smart strategy. It's just not really transparent.
Right.
That should be mandated,
it's really I'm sure their numbers on the number of people who accept are much higher because they do that,
yes.
Right? And they probably,
they said, I'm going to sell this to Bob, Frank, and Sally just to make a buck off of you. They probably, more people would say, no, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable with that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think social is a really interesting thing. And the backlash that happened over the past few months, even though it hasn't really changed that much, I don't think, I could see more and more of those type of responses happening in coming years.
Well, I'm happy that people are having the discussion.
Right, exactly.
I think that's the most important part, is that now people are talking about it and they know that they have certain rights, and the discussion is really important. I think that it takes a lot for us to kind of move to action. Like, things have to get pretty bad. We humans by nature will stay in a bad situation just out of sheer laziness and fear of that it could be worse. And why be bothered, and what can it do? And so we have a little bit of that complacency kind of built into us. It was great for a survival mechanism, because then we didn't waste calories, and calories were difficult to find. Now calories are plentiful in most of the world. But we still have that as our main area that we want to stay, is don't do anything unless you have to. And I think that after all of this news comes out, it's made people say, you know what? This is important. I do want to do something about it. Let's have this discussion. Let's look into, what can we do to make sure that people are protected, and then they can be comfortable using whatever choice of social media that they have, and just get all of the fun, wonderful benefits of being able to connect with people and not feel alone on this beautiful blue planet.
Yeah. And I think maybe this was the first time that many people began to understand how social media, and in particular Facebook, works, because, like you said, they the way that they explain in the EULA and all that stuff is just, nobody actually reads it. Nobody really understands what they're giving up to be able to use this tool. And
plus, they say that they can change it at any point in time. So, you read it at once and then suddenly it's changed. And are you going to read it a second time when they ask you? We've changed things. You want to take a look. The amount of time that we have to be able to do that is small.
Right. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see if this was kind of like, if this continues to happen, if more actual action will be taken. Because right now, I've, at least it feels like this is the first time that that normal non-techie people began to understand how this actually works. And like you said, if it takes a while for us to be like moved to action, this may have been the very first time they knew anything about it. And we as more technical people who follow this more closely have understood it for years. And we're still, at least I'm still using Facebook slightly. How does that make you feel? Right.
When you're still because you actually do understand
right
all the repercussions that are in there.
So
is there a push and pull?
Yeah. So I don't have Facebook on my phone. I deleted that a couple years ago, and I'm not logged in on my phone or anything. So it's just checking it on my Mac. I'd probably still look at it every day but it's just mostly just making sure family and people I knew from high school and college and stuff. That's kind of how it works. But yeah, there is definitely this why am I still using it? But it's kind of hard to leave.
Right. It is hard to leave because all of your people are there, and that's the big delete Facebook movement is. That's the only thing that will matter, right? People by nature, and, big companies also, of course, will say, mea culpa, I'm so sorry. I really should have fixed that, but I didn't. I'll fix it now. Don't leave. But in the end, the way to affect change is by hitting people's where they actually care, which is usually on, for Facebook, it would be their user base, but in the end, that is money for them.
Right.
And they can't sell as much if they have less to be able to deal with. And so it's a difficult thing, though, because how are you going to still contact your grandmother? She's probably not on any other social media, or some family that's away. That's where everyone is right now. And so once there will be an exodus, as with most social media, there ends up being this wax and wane, and something becomes no longer so cool and people move to something else.
Yeah.
It becomes one of these things that then they're like, oh, actually, we're going to be really great about it. Let's keep you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've taken several steps. So like I said, I deleted it from my phone, and it's not even logged in Safari or anything. And then in my browser, I use a plugin that replaces the timeline with just like an inspirational quote. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah,
So you're at least not getting the inundated from Facebook side, but Facebook can still scrape all your data,
right, yeah,
but not as easily. But not as easily because it's not on your phone; it's on your computer, which is a Mac or
it's a Mac, yeah.
Okay, so a little bit less of a chance of scraping a ton of information off of you.
Yeah, so
maybe some.
Yeah. So I've taken some steps, and I think I installed the browser, the extension when like during the election, just because it was too much, and I kept falling down the like Facebook rabbit hole, and it was just not healthy. So I installed that, and it means like when I go to Facebook, I basically just check notifications. Has anybody like in my family done anything or messaged me, and then I leave. And so it's not
right.
And it sounds like I have that decently under control, and Twitter is kind of a different story completely.
Mm-hmm. So for you, Twitter would be something that you would spend more time on.
Yeah, way more time on. Probably too much time on.
Probably too much time on. Well, I've been there. I totally understand that. It can be really, and like I use YouTube too. So like I've never been on Facebook. I don't know. I actually read all of the privacy policies of any application that I install, which I don't know.
Oh,
I think
wow.
I know.
I've never heard of anyone doing that ever.
I know. I think I'm the only one, and I do all kinds of technology shows with other big tech people, and they'll be like, "Did you read that?" And I'll be like, "I did." And they'll be like, "No, really?" And I'm like, "No, really, I really did read it. I don't know."
Wow.
So, because I want to know. I want to know, what are they trying to do? I remember not installing Plants vs Zombies because the EA, their privacy policies are scary, horrific. Like if anyone actually read anything that Electronic Arts does, they're frighteningly scary about what they want to have access to and how much. And I was like, and I knew it was mostly for browser things and not for my phone because I have an Apple phone. So, but still I was like, no, I can't do it. I just can't do it. In good conscience, I can't play this game that I really want to play.
Well, good for you. Do you know if there probably is, but do you know if there's some sort of resource out there where like somebody like you actually reads it and then it explains it in human language?
Right. I know that there are websites that will do it on certain things, but there's so many apps with so many games. I don't believe that there's one like a Wikipedia that's just on like EULAs and go through all of the different privacy policies to each company and application that's there that I know of. If there is someone tweet at us to let us know, because that would be nice. I would like to get the point form version of that, so I don't have to go through, because it's long.
Yeah, and like you said, they can change it whenever they want. So
yeah, that's what they say. We have the right to change our privacy policy at any point in time. And the thing is that if you accept a privacy policy, and then the company gets bought out, and the new company's privacy policy is different, you were not protected. So there are no laws in place to be able to say, you know what, now you have to be really careful. So we've put a lot of trust in large companies, and I think that we need to kind of look at everything and say, you know what, we have to be really careful about that.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of really interesting questions in the coming years with how I talked about this in a previous episode, but I feel like technology was like the tech world, Silicon Valley has been filled with optimistic people who kind of built things with the assumption that like they'll be used for good. And we're getting to a point where like so much is on the internet, and it's such a huge amount of our economy and like our time and our energy is put into these digital things, and we're beginning to see the repercussions of them being built without really thoughtful solutions to like them being used for negative things.
Yeah, I absolutely agree to it. I remember when Google, whose company motto used to be don't be evil.
Yeah.
When they got rid of that, I went, oh, that's not good. It was just a thought. It doesn't actually mean anything, but I just went, oh, why would you do that? So,
right.
Yeah, they're really big companies that become, in some ways, we depend on them. What would you do without Google? Oh, I'll tell you my own really funny one. And this one I kind of only went, one foot's in, one foot's out. But I got rid of Google as my search engine on my phone, which is quite an interesting experience because Google's quite good. But you only realize how good Google is when you leave Google.
Yeah.
And so I installed DuckDuckGo on my phone, which is another, search browser.
Yep.
And it's not great, but I'm now comfortable, but I didn't switch it on all of my computers. So I was like, what does that really mean? It's like 1 foot in. I just tested the water to it. And then I kept, because our lives are, just Google it and be able to find. I'm used to having information at my fingertips, and when it is not able to be accessed, I get really frustrated because then it's my time that I'm giving up. And we will often sell out our information, our money, our privacy, our rights for time, efficiency, and comfort.
Yeah. Yep. And the strategists at these companies, at any company like that, they know that, like that's how you are successful in business, is you understand how people work, and then you leverage that understanding.
Yeah, they hire a whole bunch of people like me, and we think that we're very unique and different, and we are in many ways, but there are a whole bunch of commonalities among humans that are almost shocking to be able to know once you figure out how humans tick, and they can be used against us almost, without us even having any knowledge that it's happening to us.
Yeah. It's kind of scary.
It's kind of scary, but we need to discuss it, right? Like, you want the good, but you want to also have something. You need checks and balances in place. No one can police themselves. No one. Like, no one is good at policing themselves, period. Like if you say, okay, I'm not going to eat sugar anymore. And then you'll be like, you know what, today I'm not feeling really good. So the rules won't apply on this day. We're not good at that. We do need to have some sort of oversight from something. And no, the companies, like, you throw, if someone threw to you, like, $3 million, and that was for you to promote $3 million on your podcast to promote Google as being a good company. Like, honestly, would you say no even if you knew they weren't that good of a company?
Yeah.
Or would you kind of turn a blind eye and be like, that sounds good. I can do a lot with $3 million.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
that's tough.
So we blame the government, we blame these companies and stuff, but we're all like the same. If we were in that position, if I ran Google, how I would love to say, I'd be so altruistic and try to make sure that I put people first. I don't know. But
yeah, like you can't even really. It's interesting because it all seems to come back to incentives, right? Like if you're running the business, you're paid based on how much. I mean, a lot of times these executives are paid so much in equity that the growth in the company is like their primary. That's their primary compensation. So they are incentivized to do basically anything to make that company grow. And there are some checks and balances, like all these companies have risk departments and legal departments and all that stuff. But All they're really there to do.
But they're checks and balances to the company.
Right, yeah.
Right? So they don't get sued or they don't get bad marketing, which will cost them money. It is all surrounded on that. So if there were checks and balances that did that from another source that they couldn't control, then they would not want to have that happen either. And then maybe they'd be a little more careful of what they do with your data.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because the I've been thinking a lot about Facebook and there's just all this stuff going on in the news, and it almost seems like no matter what happens, they're in a really good, like they're just in a really strong position no matter what happens. Because if regulation were to come down tomorrow, they're like the level of effort it would take to unseat Facebook just got way bigger, because now some startup can't just like make a website, and they now have to comply with all these laws. So they have to hire a bunch of lawyers who understand how to do that, who are like reviewing everything they do. And it just adds this moat to any future competition that Facebook may have. And that's not good either.
No, it's not. It's no one's going to join a social media that there's no one else on. Right? Because then you're like social mediaing alone, right? That's a sad existence. So no one's going to do that. And so when you already have a large group of people that are there, and many of them, again, complacency won't want to leave, it makes it really easy. And with Facebook, they also understand how the game works. So before they went to be able to have to speak at, I don't know if it was the House or the Senate, but whenever Mark Zuckerberg spoke, he first paid everyone off, and he's already given people a whole bunch of money to be able to be nice to him, and it worked. Right. And when the EU said that we're going to put all kinds of different sanctions and we're going to monitor it, they said, okay, we're going to move our, all of our servers outside of the European Union. So, it's a difficult thing to be able to get around. And when, not everyone is saying we should do the same thing, companies can kind of play a shell game where, well, let's hide the server and you can figure out where the server is and then we'll decide on their rules there.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what is another thing apart from social media that but that's in technology that has benefits to mental health? Like, what's some other tool out there? And we'll get to anxiety videos later, but just, is there anything else out there that has benefits to mental health?
There's so many right now of things that you can do to be able to make yourself feel better. And I think that it's really wonderful. So with social media or with even just technology, you can have specialized playlists. So music can be really helpful if you're not feeling good and you're feeling down. They have applications to be able to deal with procrastination, for inspiration, for journaling, for tracking your emotions, to make it easier for us to be able to say what exactly is happening to us right now. And that's wonderful because everyone has different ways that make them feel better. And this gives you a plethora of different avenues that if you want to kind of treat this yourself, you can choose to do guided imagery on YouTube or get an application that does a, happy journal and gives you tips of what to do every day. And so there's a lot of like little tiny things that are out there that we can deal with. And because of, all of this information that are at our fingertips, there are some, websites that have bad ideas and bad suggestions of what you should do. But there's many more that actually give helpful, useful information. If the information doesn't work for you, you can be able to go to another spot and be able to deal with it. So, if I'm feeling really down, I might go and, stick my head in VR for a little while and just escape. Just be able to say, not going to be here right now. I'm going to be somewhere else and be able to take a little bit of a break to that and really feel like I'm in another world, which is, again, just one of those really cool things that we can do now. I never thought in my lifetime that I would have a virtual world that I could exist in if I wanted to. That's just so much fun. Like, out of all the cool, neat stuff that have happened during our lifetime, that's really amazing. I'm still waiting for my robot friend, but it hasn't happened yet.
Do you find yourself using VR a lot?
VR is not as relaxing. Like, if I was playing like a video game, I can often do that and it's kind of mind numbing. VR is more, excitatory. It's exhausting. Like you're not just sitting somewhere and your fingers are the only thing that's moving. If I'm fighting zombies, I'm fighting zombies. I'm moving my hands, my legs, I'm ducking, I'm moving around. It's much more scary because you're really there with the zombies. And so it's not something that I do when I need to relax. It is something that I do when I want to kind of escape and be able to interact or do things that are different. And if you ever wanted to feel what it felt like to fly, or to be underwater without having to learn how to scuba dive, or hang out with little tiny gnomes, you can do that. And our brains really believe that we're there. And that's cool. So if you can't go underwater diving because you're claustrophobic, this feels like, it feels so real that at one point I was playing a game that I had the old Jiffy Pop popcorn that you put in a fire and it's like that metal thing that kind of pops open. Probably only so many people know what I'm talking about, but it was just like really, really cool and fun. And I'm doing that in the video game. And I swore to God that I smelled popcorn, and I have a popcorn machine. And so I asked my husband, like, are you, making popcorn right now? And he said no. And I went, oh my God, like that. It was, I really thought it, and it happened to one of I had my friend try it for the first time. And they said they were putting out a fire in one of the games, and they're flying around, and they put out fire. They're a flying firefighter. Anyways, it makes sense in the game. And he said, "Oh, but you do smell smoke, right?" And no, it was just because he saw it, and there's so much of our brains that are dealt with for vision that then it fired the scent at the same time as well.
That's incredible. Yeah, I haven't really used it that much, but it is pretty cool. As we kind of wrap up here, can you give a little bit of an explanation of what anxiety-videos is? I've been kind of going around and looking at the free stuff that you have on there, and it seems really cool. My wife and I watched the like introductory video and a bunch of the other things, and it seems like a really incredible resource. Can you give an explanation of that?
Yeah, so I deal with anxiety and depression, and we can only help so many people. And an hour of my time is, I can't see someone else when I'm there. And so I'm often booked quite solidly for a long time. And so I was talking with my colleague about what can we do, and we wanted to do something together as a business. And we discussed how, how could we reach a lot of people? Because a lot of people, like going to see a therapist, it can be daunting. It's expensive. You don't know if you're going to have a connection with the person. And it's not private. And what happens if someone finds out on social media that you've been going to see someone and then tells everyone? It can be difficult in that way. And so we wanted to be able to reach people. And so we decided to create just a self, like, it's almost like doing the sessions, but you can do them alone with us in your house. And we go through what we would teach in session 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the different little specialties depending on what you're dealing with. And it's almost like a self-help anxiety treatment on your own. And it's nice because, when you're going to see someone, like we only remember about 10 to 20% of whatever we're taught. And so this was nice because, for much less than going to a session, you could keep on rewatching it and be able to learn and go through it. And I have some of my clients that they got one and they said, every time I have a panic attack, I go back through, what to do when you have a panic attack. And I go back through the steps, and it's nice because you're with me there while I'm going through it. And then I feel better afterwards from that. And these are techniques like, I've been doing this for a decade and my colleague has been doing it for like 15 years. So this is all we do all day, every day. So the steps are pretty straightforward and they work exceptionally well. No one needs to have anxiety. 100% you can treat anxiety so that you feel better. But people don't even know that. And so they live and suffer, often in silence, of worried about being ridiculed, or what are people going to say, or ridiculing themselves. And that's not a necessity. Really, this is like almost 100% treatable. And so we wanted to be able to let people live better lives, happier lives, freer lives.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Thanks for sharing about that.
Oh, you're welcome.
I always end the show with the same question, and it's really interesting to see where people end up taking this, because it's pretty broad. But what is one thing that you find unusual in tech right now?
What do I find unusual in tech? That's a really interesting question, because when you deal with tech so much, like, the unusual is no longer unusual.
Right, exactly.
Right? I'll tell you some of the stuff that like freaks me out is some of the stuff from Boston Dynamics I find is unnerving and really like we always joke about the robot apocalypse and stuff.
Right.
Those, like, if you've ever seen like Big Dog, Big Man,
Yeah,
and watch a robot open a door or do a backflip or be walking on ice and be kicked and be able to ready itself. That brings me back, and all I hear in the back of my head is the Terminator theme.
yeah.
That's it. I'm like, oh, or robot swarms. I'm
Yeah.
like, really? And on the other side of it, nanotechnology, I find also like strange and weird, but amazing to think that they'll be able to go in and we'll have this nanotech that will be able to fix our bodies for us when we can't repair fast enough. And that's exciting. So, we end up having these two scopes of robotic technology. One, which will be, again, I want my little robot friend to be able to help me out. But I just need to learn enough to code to make sure that it won't, turn against me.
Right. Yeah, those Boston Dynamics videos, they've been coming out for years now. And like, I remember the first one I saw, they like kicked a dog over and it fell over, and everybody was like, oh no, like, why are they doing this to this robot? And then now they can't even kick it over.
No, and it can jump over things. Now it can open doors.
That's so scary.
It's like, really, if you've ever seen Black Mirror, I'm like, oh my goodness, so much of Black Mirror is coming true. And I don't know, I think that we're interesting that we just do something first and then think about the repercussions later. But I totally want a robot friend to be able to take care of me and be able to hang out and do fun things. And if I want to play, chess 1,000 times, they won't finally say, you know what, I'm done with playing chess or Boggle. They'll just keep on playing because I asked them to. So there's definitely I want that robot, but the Boston Dynamic ones are so eerily looking like they're human now that...
Right. Yeah. Or like it would be pretty cool to have a robot dog that could do errands and stuff for you.
Have you seen the little Toyota robot?
Yeah, I have. It's pretty cool. It's cute.
It's the most adorable, cute little creature ever. I want it so badly. I don't know any Japanese, so that wouldn't be at all useful. But I'm like, where is it coming? I want it so badly. It's adorable and cute, and just talk. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's adorable, cute, talks to you. It has this cute little baby voice. I would just take it with me everywhere.
Yeah, but that's how they get you, though. They don't make like a big scary dog.
You're right. They make it cute, and then it turns on you in your sleep.
Exactly.
I know, and I will fall into the trap because I've wanted a robot friend since I was little. So, yeah, that one I'll probably be, signing over my life savings for, and then eventually you'll be like, yeah, Georgia, you knew winning it. Your eyes were open when you went into this.
Yeah, you signed the EULA, and
yes, that one I'll be like, yes, you're gonna take everything and everything that it does and everything it sees in the house. I'll be like, okay, fine, we're good with this. Yeah,
that's funny. So where can people find you on the internet, Georgia?
So I am sometimes on imore.com. You can also check out Twitter. It's at Georgia_Dow. And those are the main places that you can find me. I'm not there as often in Twitter, but if you write to me, I will reply.
Okay, and you guys can find Unco on Twitter at _UncoFM. And you can find me on Twitter at TimothyBuckSF. Thanks so much
And Anxiety Videos, I want to say, is anxiety-videos.com. If you're dealing with anxiety or depression or sleep issues.
Yeah, I will definitely link that in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Georgia.
Thank you for having me.